Imagine a simple chart with two lines moving across the screen from left to right. The first line is blue, and it represents your income. Over the years, it trends upward. You get promotions, you switch jobs, you get those cost of living adjustments. It looks like success. Now look at the second line. This one is red. It represents your spending. And here is the scary part. In the vast majority of households I analyse, that red line moves in perfect parallel with the blue one. It tracks it like a shadow. When income goes up, spending goes up by the exact same amount. Visually, it looks harmless, just two lines moving up and to the right. But mathematically, it is a disaster. Because the space between those two lines is the only place where wealth is actually built. If that gap never widens, your net worth is effectively flatlining, even if you are earning six figures. This is what we call lifestyle creep, and it is the single most common reason high earners end up broke. The reason this gap stays so narrow isn't usually because of some catastrophic emergency or a lack of discipline. It is much subtler than that. Financial institutions like Fidelity and Greenlight define lifestyle creep as the gradual increase in spending as your income grows, where things that used to be wants quietly morph into needs. It is the upgrade from the sedan to the SUV because you feel you earned it. It is moving to the apartment with the doorman because it feels safer. It is ordering the appetizer and the cocktail on a Tuesday because the bank account says you can. I have seen this pattern destroy more financial plans than market crashes ever could. Before we dive into the psychology of why we do this, I want to ask you a favour. If you want to widen that gap between your income and your expenses, go ahead and like this video. It tells the algorithm that we care about the math, not just the hype. Let's break down how this actually starts. It is rarely a conscious decision to blow money. Nobody sits down and says, "I am going to sabotage my future today." Usually, it starts with a win. You get a raise. Maybe you pay off your car loan. Suddenly, there is this feeling of breathing room in your monthly cash flow. You feel richer. And because you feel richer, your baseline for what is acceptable shifts just a little bit. You stop looking at the price of groceries. You switch from the gym with the flickering lights to the athletic club with the eucalyptus towels. These upgrades feel trivial in isolation. $100 here, $50 there. It feels like the natural reward for your hard work. But here is the catch. Once you upgrade a habit, it becomes your new normal almost instantly. Going back down feels like a loss. You have raised the floor of your lifestyle, and now your income has to work that much harder just to keep you standing still. Let's look at the numbers, because the math doesn't care about how much you think you deserve those upgrades. Suppose your take-home pay jumps from $4,000 a month to $5,000 a month. That is a solid increase. In a perfect world, that extra $1,000 goes straight into the gap, the savings line. But with lifestyle creep, you unknowingly commit that $1,000 to recurring costs. Maybe rent goes up by $400. The car payment takes another $300. And subscriptions and dining eat the rest. The result is that your savings rate, the actual gap between the lines, remains exactly the same. You are moving more money through your hands, but none of it is sticking. From a net worth perspective, you are running on a treadmill. You are running faster, sweating more, and working harder, but your location on the wealth map hasn't changed an inch. You have simply increased the cost of operating your life. And the dangerous part is that higher operating costs make you more fragile, not more secure. This brings us to the strange psychological twist of lifestyle creep. You would think that earning more money would reduce your financial stress. But for the people caught in this trap, the stress actually scales with the income. Greenlight notes that because these upgrades become the new baseline, you rarely feel richer. The extra income is silently absorbed into the background noise of everyday life. You might be drinking better wine and sleeping on higher thread count sheets, but the anxiety of living paycheck to paycheck feels exactly the same as it did when you were earning half as much. It is a hedonic treadmill. You run hard to get the raise, you get the raise, you adapt to the raise, and then you feel like you need another raise just to maintain the status quo. It is an exhausting way to live, yet it is the default setting for millions of people. If you think I am exaggerating, just look at the macro data. A 2025 report from the Bank of America Institute found that roughly 24% of US households are effectively living paycheck to paycheck, spending more than 95% of their income on essentials and fixed obligations. And we aren't just talking about lower income households here. We see this parallel line phenomenon deep into the six-figure brackets. This creates a demographic of people who are high income, low net worth. They have the cash flow of a wealthy person, but the balance sheet of a broke person. They are one layoff, one medical emergency, or one bad business quarter away from total insolvency because they never widened the gap. They built a castle on a foundation of cash flow, assuming the money would never stop. But if that blue income line ever dips and the red spending line stays high, the gap turns negative instantly. That is when the math gets really ugly. Now, you might be thinking, Tom, I'm smart. I won't let my spending rise just because I earn more. But there is an external force working against you that is stronger than your willpower. Even if you don't care about luxury, you are likely participating in an invisible arms race that you didn't even sign up for. Research from UC Berkeley describes a cascading race in consumption. It turns out we don't decide what we need in a vacuum. We decide what we need based on what the people around us have. And right now, the people around you are probably spending money they don't have to impress people they don't know. If you try to opt out of this race without understanding the rules, you are going to lose. Let me show you how your neighbours are tricking you into being poor. We have all heard the phrase, keeping up with the Joneses. It sounds like a cliche from the 1950s, but the modern version is much more dangerous because of how visible consumption has become. In the past, you only knew what your immediate neighbours bought. Now, through social media, you are comparing your lifestyle to a curated highlight reel of everyone you have ever met. An analysis by ESRI found that in neighbourhoods with visible wealth gaps, lower income households tend to spend significantly more on visible goods, things like cars and clothes, just to signal status. It is a signalling mechanism. We feel a primal pressure not to be left behind by the tribe. So when your friend group starts upgrading to nicer hotels for the annual trip, or your colleagues start driving Teslas, your brain registers your current Honda Civic not as a sensible car, but as a social liability. You passively upgrade just to maintain your relative position in the hierarchy. Here is the critical flaw in that social comparison. You are operating with incomplete data. A review from Chicago Booth highlights a fascinating psychological blind spot. When we assess our own financial health, we look at our assets and our debts. But when we assess others, we only see their assets. We see the renovation, the vacation, the car. We do not see the credit card balance, the second mortgage, or the stress. You are comparing your backstage reality to their front stage performance. Consequently, you might feel behind someone who is actually on the brink of bankruptcy. This leads to what I call the invisible spending arms race. You see a neighbour buy a boat, so you feel safe buying a boat. You assume they did the math, so it must be okay. But they didn't do the math. They were copying the guy down the street. It is a chain reaction of financial irresponsibility, where everyone is looking at everyone else for permission to spend, and nobody is looking at the actual budget. This behaviour leads to a phenomenon sometimes called being hood rich, though it happens in suburbs and gated communities just as often. It is the prioritisation of high-status, visible goods over invisible assets, like stocks or retirement accounts. It is easier to spend money on things that shout, "I am successful," than it is to put money into a brokerage account that nobody sees until you are 65. The problem is that wealth is what you don't see. Wealth is the cars not purchased, the diamonds not bought, the renovations delayed. But because we are social creatures, we have a hard time valuing the invisible. Lifestyle creep feeds on this need for visibility. As your income rises, the pressure to display that success rises with it. You upgrade the things people can see, while the things that actually secure your freedom, your savings rate and your investments, remain stagnant. The final layer of this trap is the story we tell ourselves. It is the "I work hard, I deserve this" narrative. And look, you do work hard. You probably do deserve nice things. But the market doesn't care about what you deserve. It cares about what you can afford. When we use deserving as a justification for matching our spending to our income, we are essentially negotiating with simple math, and math always wins. This internal justification is what locks in the higher recurring expenses. Once you convince yourself that you need the premium cable package or the bi-weekly house cleaning to function at your job, those costs become cemented in your budget. They move from the discretionary column to the fixed column. And the more expenses you move into the fixed column, the less flexibility you have to adapt when life throws a curveball. You are building a golden cage, bar by bar, and calling it a castle. Most people stop here. They think, "Okay, Tom, I get it. I won't buy the boat. I'll just spend what I earn and enjoy my life." But that is actually the most dangerous decision of all. The problem isn't just that you are spending money, it is that you are destroying the eighth wonder of the world: compound interest. Every dollar of lifestyle creep isn't just a dollar gone. It is a soldier you killed before it could go out and capture territory for you. If you let your spending line hug your income line, you aren't just staying flat. You are actively losing millions of dollars in potential future wealth. I want to show you the difference between scenario A and scenario B. This is the difference between retiring at 50 with dignity and greeting customers at Walmart when you are 75. Let's go back to our graph. X-axis is your age, Y-axis is money. In scenario A, which represents lifestyle creep, your income starts at $30,000 and over a career rises to $60,000 or more. That looks great. But your spending starts at $28,000 and rises to $58,000 right alongside it. The gap, your savings, stays at a measly $2,000 a year the entire time. Because that gap never widens, you never get the benefit of leverage. You are saving linearly in an exponential world. After 40 years, you have saved $80,000 principal. Even with some interest, it is peanuts. You have lived a life of increasing luxury, better cars, better food, but you have zero financial independence. You are entirely dependent on that next paycheck to fuel the machine you built. This is what Berger Financial describes as a path to financial ruin, because the moment the income stops, the lifestyle collapses instantly. Now look at scenario B. Income does the exact same thing. Starts at 30, goes to 60. But here, we control the red line. We let spending rise, but slower. Maybe it goes from $28,000 to $40,000 over those same years. You still get to upgrade your life. You still get nicer things. But look at the gap. It starts at $2,000 a year, but by the end, it is $20,000 a year. That shaded area between the lines, that is your freedom. That is money that goes into investments, compounding at 7 or 8%. In this scenario, you aren't just saving money, you are buying time. By the time you hit your peak earning years, your investment returns might be generating more cash than your salary. This is the only way to escape the rat race. You have to decouple your spending from your earning. If they are linked, you are trapped. If they are independent, you are free. There is another variable that makes the parallel lines strategy even worse: inflation. If your spending rises in lockstep with your income, you are actually losing ground, because the cost of being you is getting more expensive every year. We have seen this clearly in the last few years. If you were living paycheck to paycheck on $100,000 a year in 2020, and you are still doing it today, your quality of life has likely dropped because that money doesn't buy the same basket of goods. When you have a wide gap between income and expenses, you have a buffer against inflation. If eggs double in price, it is annoying, but it doesn't break you because you are only spending 60% of your income anyway. But if you have lifestyle creeped your way to 99% utilization of your income, inflation pushes you into debt. The gap acts as a shock absorber. Without it, you feel every single bump in the economic road. The final consequence of scenario A is something called golden handcuffs. When you let lifestyle creep dictate your budget, you lock yourself into your current job or industry. You cannot afford to take a pay cut to pursue a passion project, start a business, or pivot to a less stressful career. Your high monthly burn rate demands that high monthly income. I have spoken to so many people who are miserable in their high-paying jobs, but literally cannot leave because their mortgage, car leases, and private school tuitions require every cent they earn. They have creeped their way into a prison of their own design. By keeping the gap wide, you buy yourself the ability to say no. You can walk away from a toxic boss. You can take a sabbatical. Wealth isn't just about buying Ferraris, it is about buying autonomy. And lifestyle creep is the direct enemy of autonomy. So, does this mean you can never spend money? Does it mean you have to live like a college student until you are 80? Absolutely not. That is the other extreme, and it is just as miserable. This is where conventional wisdom usually tells you to cut every latte and never enjoy a nice dinner. I'm going to tell you the opposite. You should spend money. You should enjoy your raises. But you need a system that allows you to do that without destroying the gap. We need to implement a protocol that protects you from yourself. It is not about willpower, it is about automation. Here is the specific rule I use to inoculate myself against lifestyle creep, while still enjoying the fruits of my labour. The most effective tool I have found to battle lifestyle creep is the 50% rule. It is incredibly simple. Whenever you get a raise, a bonus, or a new income stream, you immediately split it down the middle. 50% of the new money goes to the future you. It gets automated into investments or debt payments. The other 50% is yours to blow, guilt-free. Go get the nicer car, upgrade the apartment, buy the fancy cheese. If you get a $5,000 raise, $2,500 goes to savings, $2,500 goes to lifestyle. Why does this work? Because you still feel the reward. Your lifestyle still improves. You don't feel deprived. But crucially, your savings rate, the gap, widens automatically. You are satisfying the psychological need for progress while satisfying the mathematical requirement for wealth. Over time, as your income doubles or triples, your savings rate explodes, but you never felt the pinch of cutting back. You just grew into your wealth slower than you earned it. The second part of the solution is defining what enough looks like before you get there. If you don't have a finish line, you will keep running until you collapse. Sit down and calculate what your ideal lifestyle actually costs. Not the lifestyle of the billionaire on Instagram, but the lifestyle that would make you genuinely happy. Maybe it is a paid-off house, 2 good vacations a year, and eating out without checking prices. Once you define that number, you can decide to cap your lifestyle creep at that level. Any income above that level goes 100% into the gap. This is a superpower. It stops the goalposts from moving. Most people move the goalposts every time they score. If you bolt the goalposts to the ground, you can actually win the game. You reach a point of saturation where more spending doesn't equal more happiness, and that is where your wealth building goes vertical. We have talked about automation before, but for lifestyle creep, it is non-negotiable. You cannot rely on making the right decision every month. You will fail. You will see a sale or have a bad day and spend the money. You need to automate the gap at the source. If possible, have your employer split your paycheck. Have the savings portion go to a completely different bank account that you do not have a debit card for. If you never see the money in your checking account, you cannot creep your lifestyle up to match it. You learn to live on what lands in your primary account. It is forced scarcity. You are artificially creating a lower income environment for yourself, which forces you to be creative and efficient, while your real wealth grows in the background, untouched and unseen. This removes the willpower tax from your daily life. Finally, if you are really competitive, you can try reverse creep. This is where you challenge yourself to lower your fixed costs, even as your income rises. It is a game to see how wide you can make that gap. Can you negotiate your insurance down? Can you cut a subscription you don't use? Every dollar you cut from the red spending line is worth double because it is a recurring saving. If you cut a $100 monthly subscription, you haven't just saved $100, you have lowered the capital required for your financial independence. You are attacking the problem from both sides, pushing the blue line up and pushing the red line down. When you start seeing the gap widen on your own chart, it becomes addictive. Watching your net worth grow becomes more satisfying than buying the consumer junk that used to drain it. Let's bring that chart back on screen one last time. Blue line, income. Red line, spending. Most people spend their entire lives trying to push the blue line higher. They get degrees, they work overtime, they hustle. And they ignore the red line completely. They let it drift up, tethered to their income by invisible strings of social pressure and habit. And at the end of the ride, they look back and wonder where all the money went. They made millions over a lifetime, but they kept none of it. Don't let that be you. The secret to wealth isn't how high the blue line goes. It is how wide you can pry those two lines apart. That empty white space on the chart, that is your peace of mind. That is your early retirement. That is your legacy. I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you experienced lifestyle creep? Maybe you got a raise and somehow felt broke 3 months later. Or maybe you have successfully held the line. Share your story below. It helps everyone else see the reality of this trap. If you found value in this visualization, do me a favor and subscribe. I'm going to be breaking down more of these invisible financial mechanics in the coming weeks, and I don't want you to miss them. Until next time, mind the gap.